Greetings, Mega Man fans, and welcome back to the Mega Man Super Fighting Robot LPA. In this episode, we'll be taking on the 4th stage of Skull Castle. We're getting close to the end now. Just a few more stages left to go. Stage looks kind of small, doesn't it? Anyway. There are two things that we're going to notice right away here. The first thing is the presence of these arrow wall things. What they do is as you pass by them, they alter your gravity to match what it reads on the wall. Like, this is normal. But now, I have twice as much gravity as normal, which basically kills my jump height. Reminds me a lot of Saturn's gimmick from Mega Man 5 for the Game Boy. The other big thing to deal with right now is another new enemy type. This is TNAT. It's totally not a thwomp. Oh, who am I kidding? It's a thwomp, only in Mega Man. Simple enough enemy. If you stand next to it, it will slam downwards and then rise up slowly. It's also immune to buster shots. And to be precise, it counts as a shield. So things like the giant axe will dispatch it just fine. It's not a bad enemy, really. I, for one, find it works rather well. It was originally called Thwomp, but it received a name change because... I'm not actually sure why it received the name change, but whatever. And that totem poder there was a rather simple kill. The one hit I did take was pretty much the result of me being stupid. And Thwomp gets plenty of mileage in this initial introduction. And I must admit, I didn't expect to see Bob-on be much of a thing here. That fire shoot was in a decent position to be a threat to you, but if you knew to snipe it, it really isn't that bad. And that Bob-on right there is, as per typical for Bob-ons, a trap. So, don't kill it. And now we have half gravity. Because, you know, of course we do. If we're going to have double gravity, we might as well go full tilt. And if you go the top path, you benefit a little by getting the ability to skip this drill meteor entirely. Which, of course, isn't as important because it's not as much of a threat as it used to be. And that's an Axe Lord. He's not much more of a threat than he usually is, really. And that's a Gabule type A. Again, not much more of a threat than usual. In fact, if anything, that Gabule is rather a non-issue. Oh, that was kind of risky. Fortunately, that Met is easy enough to deal with. Okay, double gravity again. Huh. Susie's again. Okay. And more Tanat. Compared to Beam Hat in its, in the previous stage, Tanat gets a lot more use here. And that Flarpus was really not much of a threat, was it? At least not compared to that Tanat there. Or this one. Standing in the right place to get them to drop so you can safely pass under them in that section makes me a wee bit nervous. And we have a room filled with bats. This is actually a checkpoint room, so if you're so inclined, you can kill yourself and have your gravity return to normal. But really, why would you do that? And that was for aim. There we go, much better. And of course, this is a Wily stage, so expect plenty of spikes. And also, expect moles. Which is, they're a bit of a thing, but compared to how they usually are in official and fan games alike, these aren't too bad. Although I won't be surprised if they make a mess of the recording somehow. And I got an E-tank and a couple of screws, and I really do need to be cautious around here. This is definitely a stage, at least a section of the stage, where paying attention to your surroundings and also being excruciatingly careful is key. And if like in the last stage, I'm gonna point out, if I'm gonna die anywhere, it's probably here. Only unlike last stage, I managed to not die. Wow, impressive. That section is more than a little nerve-wracking. Unlike Shield Assaulter there, who is absolutely not a threat. And here we have a double ball that we actually do need to kill. Of course, given its bouncy nature, it may take some time. And then we have another Totem Podu who's really easy to dispatch. Man, if anything, it feels like most of the enemies in here have been easier to kill than typical. Feels a little strange, that. And this section relies a lot more on switching your gravity. And as a note, you definitely want to kill that Bob-on, because otherwise, good luck getting past there. And this is a bit of an interesting section. Definitely want to get rid of that barrage turret so it doesn't become a threat later on. And also get rid of that Bob-on, because it's right in the way. This barrage turret, unlike the last one, is perhaps a bit trickier to snipe. You actually have to get right up close and personal to it in order to deal with it. That being said, still not that dangerous. Okay, this section. This is an interesting section to me. Because while the level layout here is essentially the same, because of the way it switches your gravity from 2.0 to 1.0 to 0.5, it actually creates an interesting difficulty curve. I like this section, even if I could end up dying here very easily. Okay, this part. Okay. Ow. Yeah, trying to slide under Tanat usually doesn't work. Though, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And this section is an interesting use of the side blades, but they're really not much more dangerous than normal. And this is the perfect opportunity to do a little Susie sniping. Likewise with this one, and this one. And there we go. I admit all the lower gravity sections and such here make me more than a little nervous. Okay, almost through though. This is probably one of the longer, more difficult stages in the game. And also, the double gravity means you cannot just fall down in that section. You actually do need to jump. There we go. If I really want that extra life, I'll just use Leaf Boomerang, thank you. Okay. That should be the right spot to drop from. And then a Tanat, which you actually need to lure with a jump. And then just some... and then a tricky spot with spikes, and then a boss door, and I'm not sure why that wall was there, but okay. And that was the stage. Certainly a nerve-wracking one, I've got to admit, but not one I terribly dislike. Totally Not a Thwomp definitely gets some use here, and I happen to rather like the concept of the low-gravity mole room. That being said, as I mentioned previously, a lot of the enemies here are easier than they were in previous stages, at least in my opinion. And that's a little disappointing. Fortress is doing so well making it with its difficulty, and now it's just... it's a little disappointing. And this stage, much like the first one, suffers from issues with enemy cohesion. It doesn't feel as like it's got a set number of enemies or anything like that. It just feels like the enemies were thrown around where they kind of fit. And that shows in the way how some of them are really not a challenge, like the double ball, for example. I don't think that really added that much to the stage. Anyway, now, before we go into the boss room, I actually want to describe the boss a little bit ahead of time. The boss we're going to come up against has 3 attacks that are used in a set pattern, which you are going to see. Why am I bothering to bring this all up ahead of time? Because its second attack, well, I've seen a lot of people complain about this boss because it's random. And I'm gonna tell you now, it's not. The boss we're about to come up against is nowhere near as random as people seem to think it is. And I'm going to prove it. Okay, Pyrocore, let's go! Okay, 2, 3, 4, stop! Yes, I'm not going to attack it anymore during its blast cannon attack. And now, the fire rain. And there we go, okay. Alright, and now with that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, good enough. Stop. Alright, fire rain again. Ah, dang nabbit, I messed it up. That hit right there was me, purely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stop. Alright, fire rain once again. Dang nabbit, I needed to slide, not run. Okay, once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, stop. Alright. I did not need to slide back there. Oh my word, I'm being such an idiot right now. But, well, actually, you know what? Let's end this one. Yeah, I know, I just got myself killed, but bit of a proof of concept. So, did anyone notice how the fire rain was falling in a similar pattern? Well, it probably would help if I behaved the same way every time, but believe it or not, the fire rain isn't random. It is controlled by 2 aspects. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first aspect that controls it is its health. That controls what direction the fires will fall in. Ah! Dang nabbit! But yeah, first, there's health. That controls what directions it falls in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully I got the numbers right. There we go. The second thing that controls where the fire rain falls is where you are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To elaborate a little further, and use an E-tank since I appear to be screwing up something fierce, the Pyrocore's fire rain has, 3 falling patterns in terms of direction, depending on its health. From what I can tell, it divides its health by 3. 4, 5, 6. So basically there are 3 different patterns. Knowing this, I am able to manipulate the fire rain into falling in the pattern I wanted to, without having nearly the same amount of difficulty with it that most people tend to have. Yeah. Okay. Explanations. The Pyrocore's fire rain is controlled by its health and where you are. The location where the flames start falling, where they spawn, is either in a set location or where you're standing. And there's no random to that, period. That being said, the direction the flames fall, whether they fall straight downwards, slightly to the left, or slightly to the right, that is controlled by how much health it has. Namely, they fall in a set pattern, but where the pattern starts is determined by its health. Pyrocore, in fact, has absolutely no RNG in its fight whatsoever. And while I admit I did an absolutely terrible job of actually showing off how it behaves, it is in fact very possible to learn how to manipulate Pyrocore to get it to use the fire rain pattern that you want. I mean, I freely admit, any and every hit I took during that fight was purely the result of the fact that either A, I'm on camera, B, I'm just playing like an idiot. Regardless, that's the end of the 4th stage of Skull Castle. Interesting stage. Has some definite cohesion issues, but interesting stage. And Pyrocore is a boss that gets a really bad rep, considering it's really not as difficult as people seem to imply it is. And if you try that same strategy I was using, because there's a reason why I was counting how much damage it was taking, you might find that the fire rain does fall in the same predictable way every time. No, seriously, try it yourself. Anyway, with that, that's the end of this episode. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you learned something. And I shall see you for the next episode where we take on the 5th stage of the fortress. Until then, goodbye!